Welcome to another episode of Modern Life. Thanks for joining us this week. We're going to talk about the video game, The Wolf Among Us from recently closed Telltale Games.
Because there's a board game? Why did you have to
there's
specify?
the comic books.
the video game.
Hey, the video game. The movie. That's my sister Tabby joining me. How are you, Tabby?
Good.
Before we get going, I do just want to say, if you have anything you want to hear us talk about, let us know. You can email us at it's modernlifepod@gmail.com. And on Twitter, our handle is at modernlifepod. And you can also find us on Instagram at modernlifepod. So let's get going. All right, so as stated before, we're going to talk about the video game The Wolf Among Us today, but before we start, we want to have a new segment on this week's podcast. What are we going to call it, Teddy?
Modern Thought.
Modern Thought. All right. We want to talk about something that's just on our mind or in the news or, really just anything. And I'm going to start. I've been reading a lot about this whole right to repair thing. And if you haven't been following it, it's basically because everything's so high tech, all that technology, like everything in your iPhone is patented and it's all owned by Apple. So it's really hard to just go in if something is broken and repair it yourself because that's all patented material in there. So you have these big companies like Apple, they're fighting against your right to just be able to repair it on your own. They want you to bring it into their own shop and charge you a way higher fee than needs to be to repair it.
And also, if you try to repair it, your warranty automatically is void.
Exactly. If you open it without them there or without them doing it, your warranty is voided. But there was just this big article this morning because I'm kind of following this whole thing. There's a bunch of people. There's a giant group lobbying for right to repair, and you have all these companies lobbying against it, and there's kind of this legal battle going back and forth. But there was this big investigation this morning on CBC, and they brought in their broken laptop to the Apple store. Like, the screen wasn't working, and the Apple store quoted them like a $1,500 repair and told them just buy a new one because it's not worth it to repair it. So after they got that quote from Apple for the $1,500, they then took it into an independent repair shop that opened up the laptop, noticed there was like this little disconnected wire, just reconnected it, and everything worked fine, and they did it for free. And so it's just one of the many things in this ongoing battle to have the right to repair, as Apple's kind of having these, predatory practices. Like, they don't make any money if you repair it. Like, they just want you to buy a new laptop, a new iPhone. No one's buying iPods anymore. But I mean, if you kind of read up on it, it's happening all over the place. Like, as cars become more and more high tech, like you have people who are trying to repair their own Teslas, which is the most high tech car on the road. Or it's a really big issue with farmers who live in these rural, isolated areas, and their tractors, mainly John Deere, are just packed with patented technology from John Deere, and they're having a really hard time because they're hundreds of miles away from a repair center usually, so they just want to be able to repair it on their farm.
And it's also it's so funny, this is kind of what I've been reading about too, just that you're bringing it up, and it's also a problem with the right to choose your, like under capitalism, not having the option to not choose like a monopoly chain to get something done, which is basically part of the tactic here.
Right, because if you keep, all the repair manuals and the replacement parts and all of that is, it's all technically protected under the patent, so it's really hard for independent shops to get what they need to be able to repair your stuff. And I mean, one of the companies that's they constantly are in legal battles over Apple, but they seem to be sort of winning the battle is, I believe it's iFixit.com, and they they take everything apart themselves. They take pictures. They make their own repair manuals. They even manufacture their own parts and then ship it to you so you can repair it at home. But I mean, Apple obviously hates them doing
Yeah.
that. But there's a huge demand of people. They don't want to buy a new iPhone just because their screen is broken. Like they just want to be able to fix it. And I get both sides because yeah, it's all intellectual property, but there needs to be a middle ground to where people
It
can
doesn't
fix their own
foster
stuff.
consumerism
Yeah.
as much as it does.
But that's just been what's on my mind, and
That's
it
a
seems
good
to be
one.
constantly in the news. So I just wanted to bring it up.
Excellent. I wanted to talk about the concept of separating the artist from their work. That's something I've been hearing a lot lately. It kind of rubs me
Okay.
the wrong way.
Interesting.
And I follow a lot of like bibliophiles on Instagram, and I've been hearing it there too. And
Wait,
just
what are bibliophiles?
people who love books. Yeah.
Like audio files, like sorry, I
Got it.
got it. Okay, keep going.
No, and the concept originates from an essay called "The Death of the Author," which maybe you would have learned in school. It's kind of one of these famous essays. It's by Roland Barthes.
Okay.
Barthes, he's a Frenchman, I believe. It's from the 60s. And the concept of separating the artist from their work means, in this essay, where it comes from, that once somebody's dead, you can no longer ask them about the meaning of their work. And to interpret that, you cannot draw from their biography to do that exclusively. Meaning, you can't just say, this author was gay, so all of their work has like a gay subtext. Or this
Right.
author was Catholic, so there's like a Christian message. And so that's the original idea of separating the author
Okay.
from the work. That makes sense? And it's probably a little bit of both, because as an artist, you do put a little bit of yourself in your work, of course. But the way it's used today, and I think we all really struggle with this, you can't, for living artists, you literally, there is no separation of that.
Right.
If you're buying or supporting, pieces by a known abuser, you're directly funding them, and their financial situation and their
Right.
fame contributes directly to them being able to perform these egregious acts of violence against other people.
Right.
So there's no such thing as being able to separate those two, and I feel like that gets thrown around a lot. And then I've been thinking about it a lot in terms of authors who are dead. For example, I have only read one Charles Dickens, and I don't plan on reading any more in the future because he was a racist misogynist who was attracted to teenagers.
Right.
But that doesn't... I still recognize the value of his work and that he is a great writer. And I struggle with this too because I'm a huge Dracula fan, but I couldn't read Stoker's other book, Lair of the White Worm. I couldn't finish it because I could not ingest another horrible racist stereotype, which is what this entire book is, because it was just so toxic for me to read.
Interesting.
And I think, even though you're not directly supporting these people, because obviously they are dead, it's
Right.
not a coincidence that what we mostly teach in schools and what we perpetuate as classics are like white dudes. And there is value in what we recognize to what we attribute value, if that makes sense. And I think I personally, of course, also need to do a better job of seeking out those works by people who don't fall into that group
Right.
of white dudes. So there's still power in that, even though it's a little bit different than people who are alive. But I just think it's a lot better to say, I struggle with this and let's have a conversation about it, rather than just completely shirk all responsibility
Right.
and say, oh no, this is the work and this is the author and they're completely separate and I don't need to, interact with
Right.
that intellectually.
So is it easier to separate it once that person is dead?
Yeah, I don't know. But I think you still contribute to
Right.
what's floating around in social consciousness. Like
Yeah.
we still associate Christmas with Charles Dickens. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, and I don't hear a lot about some of these authors who are celebrated. Like we love The Great Gatsby, but we don't hear about how he, mentally abused Zelda. Like nobody's talking about that. Like it's.
Wait, you're talking about the author of The
The
Great
author,
Gatsby?
yeah.
You're
Like,
that people know what you're talking about. You're jumping all over the
I'm
place.
jumping
Wait,
all
who is
over the
Zelda?
place.
His wife?
His wife.
Okay, not everyone knows that.
Oh, okay.
Not everyone's as smart as you, Tubby. Okay.
Whatever.
No,
Yeah,
that's
no,
interesting.
I'm just struggling with it, and I feel like we, on some level, we should all be struggling with it.
Well, and it's yeah. I mean, it's happening a lot right now, right?
Yeah,
With the Me Too movement,
exactly.
and you have Cosby and all these comedians. Where I think it gets really hard is when you have someone like Weinstein, who is like, I mean, he's not directly making the movies, but he's involved with
and he's
it.
profiting greatly
Right.
from. I know, yeah. This
So
is what I'm talking about.
That's where it gets really murky
Yeah.
because it's like, on one hand, you want to support, you know, you want to support all the actors and the directors who make the movie, but you're also supporting the people that are funding the movie and producing it. So yeah, I mean, it's maybe there's not a right answer for those kind of situations, but yeah, like when I was just watching The Hateful Eight the other day, and I totally forgot. Like, you know, the beginning, you get all the movie credits, and they're like the Weinstein Company because Tarantino had all his movies with Weinstein. I was like, so weird to see. Just like whenever I see a movie now with Kevin Spacey, it's just
Yeah, or Morgan Freeman.
which there's so many Kevin
yeah.
Spacey movies I love, and it's just really. Even though I love everything else about the movie, just knowing that one person's in it, it just kind of. I can't be in the movie anymore. I just think about that actor.
I think the way you're doing it, that's a healthier way to do it.
Right.
Rather than just be like, oh, I have nothing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want it to think about this.
Yeah, no, it's a weird thing. I think it's only going to happen more and more.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not done uncovering scumbags, especially in the entertainment and arts industry. You know?
Do you want to jump into Wolf Among Us?
Let's do it. The Wolf Among Us by Telltale Games, which recently closed, and we're going to jump into that a little bit too because...
Back to capitalism.
Back to capitalism.
Yeah, I think maybe if you're listening to this, you've already heard about this huge scandal. Telltale Game pretty much fired all their employees, and they were hiring employees like a week before. And there's a big push towards forming unions because it's basically the only thing that will protect you from these predatory practices. And especially in the entertainment industry or any kind of creative work, there's this really horrible mindset of you made it here and there's a million other people who would love to be you. So that now justifies that you have to work without being paid, that you don't get benefits, that you have to, and if you're not a cis white dude, this is even more toxic because it's saying you have to tolerate these behaviors from your coworkers because you're black or because you're trans or like because you made it now, you're in the video game industry, you're following your dreams, and it's not a healthy
really
way to look at it.
against white people today, huh?
I always do.
My Lord. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the whole story on that. Like, so was the company just not providing any benefits or anything like that at all? I know what the biggest debacle was is that they just closed without notice.
And
leaving all these people without a job.
And then also I don't believe there was a severance. And then they do this thing too. A lot of businesses do this. It's the non-disclosure agreements that pretty much anywhere you work, you have to sign that now.
Right.
And also the independent contractor loophole where like, oh, you're not really our employee. Like we just hired you.
Is that what happened with Telltale though?
They had a few and
Okay.
I was reading about it and they had a few.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the politics of it because I don't know enough about the unionization and all that because I know unions aren't always good either. But, I mean, the employees were trying to unionize?
No, I think there's just now a huge push towards that because people are realizing there's no... I mean, the voice actors strike, that's been going on, and those people just want, like, transparency and safe stunt work and like very normal demands, and even that is not being acknowledged by EA and all these big
now do we know exactly why the game studio closed down? Were they just not making money?
They wouldn't. Yeah, that's from what I was reading.
Interesting.
That's basically it.
That seems so weird because they were like, I mean, they had all these games associated with really with pop culture things that are
Like
that
the
everyone's very like
Game of
the
Thrones and
yeah, like I think probably Telltale is best known for the Walking Dead games, and not like there's a Walking Dead game where it's like a shoot 'em up game. That's not this one. There's another Walking Dead game that Telltale made where it's an episodic game, and it's much more true to the comic book, I think. And that's what they were most well known for, especially the first season, which was a fantastic game. But yeah, I mean, they were making Game of Thrones games. They had just signed on to do, oh God, what's that Netflix show? I'm blanking out. The Stranger Things. They were going to make a game with
okay.
Stranger Things. I mean, they had all these projects signed for things that are really popular, so I'm kind of surprised that they weren't making any money. But who knows? I mean, if it's such a dysfunctional company to where they're just going to close without notice, God knows what else was going on behind the scenes as far as the finances are concerned. But yeah, unless you got something else to say, let's dive into
Nope.
this game.
I think we're just gonna go through it episode by episode,
Okay.
and we're not gonna do a big recap of eaching. We've been trying to be better about that, but I think it would just take up so much time to tell you again what happens in each episode. We're just gonna.
I mean, do you want to just give your overall feelings about the game first?
I'll do that then.
Okay. Do you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
do that? Because I know you have some strong feelings.
I love when the title sequence and the menu with the flower patterns laid over each
Yeah.
other. Love it. Amazing. I love the use of purple and shading too. Gorgeous. I love the title sequence.
The music and right when you load up the game, and yeah, you're in that main menu. The music is what I noticed first, because it's very much. I feel like I'm in the movie Drive a little bit. It's just kind of like nighttime cool music in the background. You have these purple colors in the menu. I was like, okay, this is really cool. Yeah, I feel like I was just kind of getting this cool vibe, like I'm this cool detective. It was like John Wick meets Drive meets like I'm in this cool alternative world, and like it got you in the mood right away just from the main menu, which I thought was really cool.
And you didn't know that it was about fairy tales.
I had no idea. I had no idea it was about all these fairy tales. I didn't even know about the comics. I never read them. But once you start playing that first episode and you kind of get what's going on, and it's all these different fables as people, I was like, that's really cool. Like I had no idea, and I think where the game fails on the surface is kind of what do you call it? The cover art, right? Like if I were to buy this game at the store, the cover art is just
like
the
a
main
werewolf
character as a wolf. I would never know it's about all these fables and this murder, and he's a detective. I don't get any of that just from the art, so I don't know. Maybe they could have done a better job there. But I love the fact that it was about the fables. I thought that was a really cool idea, and I was as soon as that message got across to me, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Like, this is awesome.
I don't know if you had the same problem. I was really confused about the word fable at first, because in the States it's used as a magical fairy tale story, and then also a moral with animals. And that definition, those two definitions exist in German as well, but I only had ever heard it used for like a moral with animals.
Which you're from Germany, so that's why that confused you?
Yeah. And like I remember when the Fable games came out, and I was like, oh, are you playing an animal? Is there like a moral to the...
Yeah,
but
I see what you mean. But yeah, I mean, first episodes, I'm trying to remember everything that happens. I mean, it really just sets the game up. Right?
Okay.
The first murder happens at the very end, right? You find the head, and that's how the first episode ends.
Well, it's kind of towards the beginning. Also, he's in his apartment. He's got an empty ice cube tray. I hate that. Fill it back up, put it in the ice.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a dysfunctional guy. I mean, you get that right from the beginning. And he's living in this nasty apartment. There's nothing in his fridge. It's just the stereotypical detective who doesn't take care of himself, and he's just into the job 24/7. But I love those kind of characters. Even though
everyone does.
Yeah, which I mean they always work.
Okay, so I had a huge problem with this. They find this head on the step,
at the end of the first episode, right?
No, it was towards the beginning.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like
And
you're right. Oh, they find the second head.
They just leave it there. And then they have this
Oh,
whole
Lord.
long conversation.
Yeah.
I could not get into it.
Well, I think this is a theme throughout the game, is that it's really, I mean, this guy's a professional detective and he's investigating stuff, or they'll do a biopsy of a body, and it's just like whoever wrote this, like either they just didn't have the time to make it very detailed, or they have no idea the people who made this game what they're talking about. It seemed so.
The criminological practices were so insane and rudimentary that, it really pulled me out of the game.
He's like just sniffing the blood. There's no blood test. Trying to find, like, who does his blood belong to? Or it's just like
he's touching the head with his bare hands.
No one's taking fingerprints. It's just very like it's like the 1850s detective work.
And they just leave the head there. They have this whole conversation. The head's just lying there at the front entrance of this busy apartment complex. And also, it didn't check out emotionally in any way that Snow White is like, oh, there's a head. I'm going to go get Bigby. And then she walks downstairs and she's all cool about it. And she's looking at it. You would be out of your mind. Even veteran police officers vomit and no, that is not a normal reaction unless she is a psycho serial killer, and that was the plot twist all along.
Yeah,
did not check out.
It comes up time and time again where it's just really kind of.
And then he puts his hand over the eyes of the dead head that's been laying there. Yeah. And A, the eyes close, and B, they stay closed. That is not a thing.
Hey, it's how it works in movies and games, okay?
That's not a thing. We all know that's not a thing.
Shh, be quiet. Gotta honor the dead and close our eyes.
Yeah, you also have to lay something on their eyes so it stays closed. And that head would have... No, that's not a thing.
I mean, it didn't really take me out of the game as much as I think it did you.
Well, it shouldn't have been to the point where it was so ridiculous. And so...
Right, because the game takes place in, the 1980s, right?
Right.
Supposed to be the 80s? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Judging by how big the phones are and the old yellow taxi cabs in New York. It seems to be around the 80s, maybe late 70s. But no, because he had a wireless phone in his apartment. Yeah, I know.
But that doesn't stop people's normal reactions
it's kind of weird. What I got... I'm kind of going into episode 2 a little bit more. I felt at a certain point there was almost too many characters for me to follow for a minute. I don't know if you got this at all.
No. Mm-mm.
Which I feel like got better as I played the game more. But there was a point in episode 2 where I'm like, wait, Lily, Faith, I kept mixing them up because I feel like I didn't get to know the characters that well, especially the ones that were dying. I don't know. I just felt overwhelmed for a second. I feel like it got better towards the end of the game, but there's just a lot of different fables to keep track of, I feel like. And this Bluebeard character gets introduced, and I never really got a good understanding of what he does in the world. He just seems to be the financial guy, but nobody knows. Now, on the other hand, I really liked interacting with all the characters. As I said, just kind of bringing all these different fables to life as characters. I think it's just an awesome idea, and I just love, hey, there's Snow White, and there's Beauty, and there's Beast, and it's just, I really like being in that world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's something, this bothered me in the comic books, too, though. This is going to be nitpicking, but that's what I'm amazing at.
Yes.
They don't seem to understand, and I've seen this in other media too. Schneewittchen and Schneeweißchen are different Snow Whites. They're different characters. Because this Snow White is sisters with Rose Red. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't be, because it's a completely different Snow White.
So, but I don't know what is there a different name in English for those
There's
two
not.
different Snow Whites?
And so Americans get confused. But they're different stories. They're not related. Just letting y'all
And
know.
so there's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, right?
Yeah.
And then what's the other Snow White?
Snow White and Rose Red with the bear, where she like falls in love when a bear comes to stay.
Oh god, I don't even, I barely even
That's like
remember
my favorite
that
fairy
one. Is
tale.
it?
Yeah.
I think it's more of a German thing. Like, I don't think it's as well known here.
Yeah.
It could be crazy.
Yeah, I think that's
I mean,
that's why
'cause
people get confused
Germans
too.
are like obsessed with their fables.
Yep.
I thought the writing in the game was sometimes really lazy. I think the best example being in episode 2, you are, I think it was episode 2. Hold on, where is it? Yes, so you're looking for the hotel, right, where the murder happened. Lily's murder, I believe it was.
The Open Arms.
The Open Arms Hotel, and you're trying to find all these clues, and you are, you're interrogating this prostitute in the strip club and all that. And it turns out the hotel you're looking for is literally right next to the strip club where the lady that was murdered worked. And it's like, was all that necessary to jump through? Like, wouldn't that be the first place you check, maybe? Like, because you know it's a hotel room. He's like, this 207's a room number. Like, but where is it? Maybe the hotel right next to the strip club where these girls are working out of. It just seemed like really silly.
Yep.
And I'm going to jump a little bit all over the place. It comes up again for me in episode 5. It starts with this car chase. You're chasing Georgie, right? You remember that? Mm-hmm. And you're chasing Georgie all through the city. You're turning to this wolf. You're jumping from building to building.
I thought there were going to be consequences for that.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be a huge deal where Snow White's like, you were like a monster in the streets.
Again, weird writing. Yeah, like people wouldn't have noticed a werewolf jumping from building to
Nobody's
building or like
bothered.
on top of a car. But anyways, you go through this huge car chase of New York City.
And then you just go back to the pudding and pie.
Guess where Georgie, the strip club owner,
He's going back
goes
to his
back to
secret
this
hideout.
strip club. Like, it's not a secret hideout. The chase was not necessary
I had
at
that
all.
same reaction.
Never mind that they don't
oh my
even
God.
Georgie is in this car with the lady he works with. They think they lost you in the chase, but then they don't even hide. They literally just crash the car outside of the strip club and run in. Like, wouldn't you hide the car? Like, make it look like you're not at the strip. Like, I thought it was so bizarre.
And also the real cops only show up once. They don't show up when there's like a bloody car in a trail right next to and we know the cops frequent that place because we saw a cop come out of the Open Arms. So
that's true.
They're not worried about this crime scene. It's fine. We're just gonna leave this here.
Another thing is when you find the crime scene at the Open Arms, there's still just blood everywhere. Meanwhile, this murder happened 24 hours ago. Like, no one's been in that hotel room. Like, no one cleans these hotel rooms or anything.
I guess not because because that one was like a private room.
Was it?
Yeah, so I think there was like a private deal because
know.
Beauty was like, I don't have the key to this.
That doesn't bother me so much, but it's just when you have these big setups for things that then just turn out to be really obvious. It just seems really silly. And God, I don't know. It's not like a big budget game, so you only have so much time to make these games. I don't know if you just have to take shortcuts sometimes.
Yeah, it comes off a little silly though. You're right.
It is silly because you spend a whole episode trying to find out where the hotel room is, and guess what? It's next to the strip club. Soccer!
Also, another thing that Americans are obsessed with when you're looking through the Book of Fables for the page for Cinderella, it has a pumpkin carriage on it. And this bothers me because it's just perpetuating Disney constantly. And I feel like if you're drawing from all these really cool ancient folklores...
Do you research a little more?
Do your own thing. I'm tired of seeing this pumpkin carriage. I've seen it. It's everywhere, nonstop.
What was it in the original Fable? Do we know? Is it just a regular
I think she
carriage?
just walks there.
Really?
There's no pumpkin mentioned.
I thought maybe it's just a regular carriage.
I don't think pumpkins even grow on her property. I don't know.
Well, it just shows you how much influence Disney has on these fables,
it just rubs me the wrong way. Also, did you know about that fairy tale, Allerleirauh? Had you heard about that at all?
Allerleirauh?
Yeah, the one that with the girl in the donkey skin that you then find in the Book of Fables when you're looking for
No, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I had read it a long time ago, but it's definitely not one of the more popular.
I've never heard of the Jersey Devil either.
No, Never.
That's an East Coast thing. But I do like that they have all these old
Yeah.
school fables incorporated with some New World
Definitely.
fables like the
Definitely.
Jersey Devil. And then we had to look up what the Jersey Devil was. And now we know more.
Just a quick explanation, because I know this game only has so much budget for their lines and for their dialogue, because Snow White says, "Oh, that's German for every kind of fur," but
Yeah.
Rauwan or Rauchwan, which is fur that's not yet processed into like pelts,
Right.
like an actual piece of
Right.
clothing.
Right.
I had to look that up. I don't
Yeah,
feel like
I've
that's
never heard of that word, and we're both German.
that's not like a word that's used in modern times, I feel like. So her being like, oh, that's a German word, but it's not like a normal German word. That's like a pretty
Yeah.
old school word.
Well-
If you're like an artisan craftsman from Austria who's just fuming right now listening to this because Rauchwan is a part of
Right.
your daily vocabulary, like let
Right.
us know. But I had never heard of that.
Let's move on to episode 3 because there's a pretty important decision to be made in that episode. There is a point at the end of episode 3 where you have the choice to kill Tweedledum or let him live. And I killed him. What did you do?
I killed him too, and I got the glitch where he shows up later. I googled it.
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
a glitch where it does show up later.
He is not dead at all.
But
It doesn't save.
I didn't feel bad at all because he's shooting me like 20 times with the shotgun. Like, I'm gonna kill this bastard who he keeps interfering with me. He's like tried to kill me multiple times. Like, I'm gonna kill this guy. But the game gives you like shit for doing it later on.
I didn't experience that because
Oh,
again I
really?
had that glitch, so I don't know how people react.
Oh, was
to
he
me
back permanently for
differently.
you?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
I
didn't
didn't
realize
happen
it
to-
until the end. Then I
Weird.
googled it, and multiple people had that same issue.
How strange. Yeah, no, I didn't have that glitch.
So
but
how did people treat you, or what?
it
was the
just came up a
dialogue?
couple times in the dialogue at the end where they were just like you're the same old bad wolf, like you killed Tweedledum. Like, they made me out to be this bad person, but it's like this guy's like tried to kill me multiple times. Now he's shooting me with the shotgun repeatedly. Like, I'm gonna defend myself.
Well, and not only that, this video game uses superhero violence logic, where
Right.
certain actions you can break somebody's spine over and over and over, and it
Right.
has zero effect, which is what I did to Tweedledum when you push him against the
Yeah.
wall over and over. But then other things, like one knife kills you forever. Like, I see this in superhero movies all the
Yeah.
time. And because I didn't know what mattered and what didn't, because
Yeah.
I'm a human being and I'm not in this like video game logic. I'm like, when the choice came up, I was like, well, technically I did just kill this guy based on
Right.
all the things I just did to him. So I don't know what.
Well, and we sort of looked this up because the game never explains it. Just like how exactly because some characters seem to be stronger than others, and the theory that makes the most sense, but the game never really confirms it, and I don't think the comic book really does either. But the theory is if you're a more well-known fable, it's way harder to kill you. Hence why, like, the wolf or Tweedledum can take all this damage. But spoiler alert, when Georgie dies at the end of the game just from one single knife stab, like, nobody knows his fable, so he's just not a very strong character.
Do a lot of people know the Jersey Devil? Because that seems to be
I don't know. People from Jersey
Never
do.
mind.
I don't know.
they're
There's a
holding
lot
on
of people
tight.
that live over there. Okay. That seems to make the most sense, but again, the game never explains why some characters can take such a beating and punishment, and some characters die so fast. So
Well, and also in this situation, I'm having trouble arresting just one guy, Ichabod Crane. And
Right.
since he's now in my custody, I have two civilians now with me, Snow White and Ichabod, whom I have to protect. So, yeah, if killing this person is my only option,
Yeah.
I didn't, yeah.
because they're coming at me,
They're not going to stop.
Yeah, it was a little
And then
silly.
also Snow White giving up Ichabod was really, like, that was not a responsible thing to do, especially as a leader. You cannot choose your friends over somebody who is in your protection currently. Like, that shocked me.
guess.
I was like,
Really?
what? And like, she's trying to be this big tough like mayor, Now
Yeah,
she's
but
like, oh, you can have
that's the
him.
only thing you can do at that point because Bloody Mary's just gonna do whatever she wants
But she
anyway.
didn't try to run away, and there's constant gunfire, and then it constantly it cuts back to her standing in the alley like shocked, and I'm like, you didn't want to go hide behind a corner or
Yeah, I don't
anything
know.
from this. Then she's
Stop trying to
shocked.
make so much sense of it.
uh,
What else you got for episode 1 and 2? I know I've
so
been
for
kind of all
episode
over the
1,
place.
I went to Toad first,
Oh, that Toad.
and then I went to Prince Lawrence, so he died for me.
Mr. Big Baby.
Did you? Did you?
Sorry. I love the Toad's accent. The second I started playing the game after episode 1, I started going around the house with that accent, and you were like, I knew you were going to do that accent. You know how much it costs to get glamored, Big Baby.
Did you do the Toad first?
I did do the Toad
because
first.
in the mirror it looked like that guy was dead, so I was like, well, I'm gonna help Toad because the other guy's already dead.
Yeah, exactly.
But then also here's a continuity error where Toad at this point does not know that anybody has died.
Yeah.
But then he has a line about, or we talk about Faith being dead, and Toad already knows about it. There wasn't like a wait, who died?
Okay.
Don't know if you caught that. And then also when it has a choice of grab the Toad or slap him, I'm supposed to grab him.
Okay.
But then later in episode 2, he says, are you going to apologize for hitting me in front of my boy? And I'm like, well, nothing I do matters apparently because you have just decided that I like hit the Toad, which I did
There's
not
some weird
do.
glitches in the game, obviously. But it brings me to a greater point to where the game, every other decision you make, this little thing pops up in the top left, and they're like, this character will remember that. And half the time they don't. Half the time it doesn't matter.
It never mattered
at all. Because you really, this just goes to a greater point of it's this fake choices matter thing. Because at the end of the day, there's really only 2 or 3 different endings anyway, right? So it's
but I thought that maybe you could craft this world in a way where people would react to you differently. But even when I looked at walkthroughs online and saw what other people did, it was still the same reactions from Snow White,
Right.
And then I looked this up to see if other people were bothered by this. And then all these smarty pants online were like, well, it's a game of choice, not of consequence. And I'm like, oh my, like, what does that even mean? So you want a game of choice, but we're back to this like Kentucky Route Zero Conway like syndrome of how do you feel about the wolf? And I'm like, well, I just
want my choices to actually matter, especially if the game's saying like this character's gonna remember this later. But
then don't even have that pop up at the top if it's not about consequences.
And I wish like a game that does this really well. I think what was it, Until Dawn? Know that horror game?
I was gonna bring that up.
Because that game you can go into the menu and like you can see where you're at with every single character as far like your relationship with them. And I think that would really help a game like this where you're interacting with so many characters. Like if you're making all these choices, it would be nice to see like where am I at with all these characters? And in a game like Until Dawn, it definitely seems to matter a lot.
And people
more.
die.
Yeah, like people actually die. They have totally different reactions depending on where you are with them relationship wise. And in this game, that's just, it seems to be like that on the surface, but nothing really matters all that much, which is kind of frustrating. Especially because, like, just talking about Toad, if we want to jump to the end real fast, like I made the choice where you find Ichabod Crane, who was running the town. You find his jacket. It's got all this money in it. Like, I took the money, and then later you're talking to Toad, who was about to get kicked out of Fabletown by Snow White to go to this quote-unquote farm where I guess all the unglamored fables have to go. And you give Toad this money, you're like, go get glamour so I don't have to kick you out. And everything seems to be fine. Then at the very end of the game, the frog gets deported anyway. And so it's just... is the problem. It's like it didn't matter at all what I did.
It was almost like insulting.
Yeah, it really was.
I was like, I didn't have...
Especially because you have all these choices leading up to it where you're like arguing with Snow White about that situation, and then you also give Toad the money to get glamored, and then none of it matters at the end. It's like, why? Like, what are we doing here? It just seemed really silly.
Yeah. Also, so at the end of episode 1, going back to that,
Yeah.
and you find Snow White's head on the steps. I couldn't wait to start the next episode. I had to look up right away if she was dead or not because
Why?
because I was like, if this is a game that's all about fridging, I'm not here for it. Fridging is a term used when female characters die for motivation
Okay.
for the male character,
Okay.
and that doesn't happen. She's still alive.
Right.
Spoiler. So starting with episode 2 at the beginning, the police are there for a second. And again, this whole interaction with the police, it just rang so untrue and false for me because they're so committed with this bad boy image of Bigby that, again, his emotions don't reflect any normal person's reaction.
Okay.
Because his, lady friend just died.
Right.
And he's acting like a pouty child, and he's immediately jumping to anger. There's the stages of denial and depression and others. You don't immediately jump to anger and don't cooperate with the cops. And also, I don't believe that the police show the friends of the deceased pictures of their severed heads.
I don't know.
The detective is like, here, look at this. Are you going to talk now?
I don't think
what?
he would interact with the police, though, because they keep everything under wraps for Fabletown.
No, but I'm just talking about his reactions and where he's at and, his emotions.
Okay.
That did not... he didn't even seem sad at all. He was just, slightly angry about it.
Interesting.
And, yeah, with victims of this kind of violence, I don't think that people who are close to those victims are then put in an interrogation and look at this disgusting body. I'm like, what?
But they're interrogating him because he runs into the crime scene, right? So does he
yeah, because he lives there.
I don't know.
But they know he lives there and they know that that's his friend. So why would they be I don't know. It's just. And then also the memory wipe spell, does that affect the camera? Because I thought he was going to walk out and grab the camera. Right? And he's like, no, just need this picture. What's technology?
So Crane comes in, wipes everyone's memory for the last 24 hours to get Wolf Bigby out of the interrogation room. But there's there's a camera recording everything in the corner of the room, and no one seems to care about that. I mean, when everyone wakes up, hey, let's look at... I've been asleep. Everyone at the police station fell asleep. Let's look at the videotape.
This is a normal day.
It's very bizarre.
And then the next thing that didn't check out for me either was in the interrogation, which I chose the Woodsman. I think you chose Tweedledee for the...
Oh, I choose Tweedledee, and I beat him up a little bit.
Wow.
Not much.
No, I did not use any sort of violence.
I'm a good cop.
Yeah, this game was constantly pushing police violence on you, and I was constantly rejecting it.
But
to
anyway,
the point.
I want to get to that actually. But what were you going to say about the interrogation?
So I grabbed Bluebeard because Bluebeard. Then if you don't hit him, Bluebeard starts hitting the suspect.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So I chose to grab Bluebeard, pull him off. Snow White will still be angry at you for what happened in there, even though I didn't do any of it. And then Toad later watches it with his son in the mirror.
Oh, really?
You didn't catch that? Where Toad is looking in the mirror, and then he's like, "Oh, what were you watching?" And then you ask the mirror.
Yeah, why is he watching that?
Right away, I was like, "He was probably watching me." And then the mirror even says later on, "Yeah, he was watching you."
Right.
But why is Toad watching with his little son some really violent, intense interrogation scene?
Yeah, that's weird.
Not Dad of the Year at all.
No.
that didn't make any sense either.
Well, no, I didn't really hit Tweedledum in interrogation. I think I just kind of
shook him up a little bit.
Shook him up, but I didn't beat the crap out of him. Yeah, no, I really wasn't that bad with him. I mean, I gave him a cigarette, I gave him a swig of his whiskey, and the guy just kept being a smart ass. So I don't think I punched him, but I think you put your arm against his throat or something a little bit, right? Okay. So just a little bit of letting him know who's boss,
So going to the dead body examination, which any basic forensics TV show would tell you is not performed on clothed bodies.
And that was on
Lily's
body, right? Yeah.
and they had this whole thing about, ooh, we have to take our clothes off. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of the job.
It's like, no, like she's being all, Snow's being all weird about it. Never mind that they have this dead body in this damp dungeon. Like,
That's again not stiff again. None of these fables are subject to Totenstarre. What is that called?
Totenstarre?
When bodies go stiff.
Oh, you're going all German on me.
I don't remember what it's called.
I forget. But yeah, dead bodies go stiff.
Or do they?
And like, wouldn't you, like, she's a prostitute, so wouldn't you check for things like, did she get like raped or things like there's the whole investigation of the body is so like wishy-washy. It's like not professional at all. It's really kind of weird. Like, if this whole fable town, but they don't have any sort of official room where you can like examine a body, like you're gonna do it in this moldy, weird, like you're like investigating this dead body in this moldy little dungeon underneath Fable Town. It's just really kind of weird.
And then when you get TJ's witness statement, TJ's the toad son.
Oh yeah, the little boy.
This got me a little emotional. I thought
really?
I thought it was acted out really, really well.
The voice acting was phenomenal.
And kids can come off as kind of annoying or, not genuine. And the way he was so distressed about what he was seeing. And, man, this is tough. It got me. Also, this type of interrogation is, oh, God, again, not at all. Like, police actually often hire, there's actually a demand for this job, but... So if you are good with kids, maybe this is for you, getting witness statements out of kids.
Interesting.
And the things you need the environments you create for them to make it safe, and the type of language you use for them to even talk, or like, I think from what I was reading, they sometimes even build forts or do like video calls into court so the kid doesn't have to be there. There's also a lot of
use of... This is the 80s, Tubby, okay? I'm gonna do things Wolf Bigby's way.
There's also use of like service animals a lot that the kids can hold on to in court. So just the fact that TJ was even talking at all, and then he was really distressed, it made sense to me because he's not in a comfortable environment. He's in this weird office. He's with this weird wolf guy and his
But like, are
dad.
we also just expecting way too much from this little indie art house game that's on a limited budget? It's got little episodes. Like, it's not going to be hyper realistic.
No,
right?
I think with that it's fine. I just think, like we just said with the forensics and stuff, if you're going to include that in your game, don't be so ridiculous about it.
Yeah, and going back to, investigating the dead body, at the beginning of episode 4, the doctor is like, sewing you up, all the bullet hole, like getting the bullets out of you, like you've been shot up in this alley, and he's doing it like on your couch.
I have a lot of things to say about that
scene. The doctor is wearing a suit that is covered in blood. He's not wearing any sort of medical garments.
Not wearing gloves.
You're getting blood all over your couch. That was so bizarre. Like, is there no Fabletown hospital? Like,
this is again another thing where I was like, well, I don't know what to contribute meaning, because first aid is all completely arbitrary and violence is arbitrary and injuries are... At this point, he has a compound fracture, which means that the bone is protruding out of the skin. And first of all, you have to stop the bleeding, which is never done on anybody. So these people have an infinite amount of blood supply.
But why do we even have to take the bullets out of him? It obviously doesn't... Wouldn't you just have to take the silver bullet out? I mean, I don't... Again, there's no real answer to what
and none of these people, can get infected by anything. Because that's the number one issue when you have a compound fracture is now that is open to infection from the outside world. Nobody's wearing any gloves on anything. Nobody's stopping the bleeding. And then you also have to keep the arm in like the same position for it to heal at all. But the dude just puts like some gauze on your arm and you're like, I'm okay now. And I'm like, well, if you just heal yourself, then why are we even doing this?
And first of all, there's a big deal made out of in the beginning of the game that Bigby only has this one chair in his tiny little apartment, and now he's getting blood all over it. His chair is ruined. It just seems weird they would be doing it on his couch/chair. Like, just getting bullets out of him, getting blood all over the place. Like, there's just blood on his floor in the apartment. This is very bizarre.
Let me go back to... Oh, yeah. So the next thing you do, this was in episode 2, you go to Holly, because I figured out right away that this was like her sister or whatever.
Oh,
I don't know.
did?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't.
You smarty pants.
So you're going into this bar where you know you're not welcome. And also, I love when she asked, this was in the earlier episode, but when she asked me if I want a lime. And I'm like, yeah, I ordered tequila. Of course I want a lime. Did you say you wanted a lime?
I think
and
so.
And she goes,
so it gives you shit for it,
bar
right?
down the street has limes. Yeah. I really like that.
You wuss, taking limes with your tequila.
So you walk in there with your intention to notify the next of kin, and you throw a cigarette on the floor and then stomp it out with your foot.
He's constantly throwing cigarettes all over the place.
Is this the way to start this discussion? By, like, dirtying up somebody's, like, establishment?
Yeah.
This was just bizarre to me.
Well, he's constantly doing it throughout the game. He's just putting his cigarettes out on people's floors, like, in the meat market, in the bar, like, everywhere.
And then I think we both chose be gentle with Holly, which I regretted immediately.
Why?
Because I should have chosen be direct with Holly. Though I don't think that the game is thinking about it in this way. I think it was like a be nice or be not nice option, when really, in real life, doctors have to be as direct as possible, and police officers, because you immediately go into denial. Like, your brain does not process. If you say things like, oh, they've gone, or you have to literally say, like, they're dead, they're no longer alive.
Right.
Because your brain will not process it. And me being gentle and like, you know who it is. You know who died.
You know.
I'm like, that's not the best way to tell somebody that their sister
if you ever
died.
seen, what is it? I believe it was called Contagion. It was with Matt Damon. I might have had a different title. There's a great scene in that where his wife dies in the beginning, and the doctor is so direct with him, and he goes in this denial.
He's like, oh, can I go
great
see her?
Scene.
Right?
Like, everyone should YouTube it. That's like what kind of would actually happen.
Yeah, like if you're making a game about this, maybe you should do some.
Where were we? Are you on episode? What episode are we?
We're on episode 2, and the next thing is going to the strip club.
Right. Oh yes, this is what I wanted to talk about, because you mentioned earlier that the game is constantly
forcing police violence on you.
Well, it's encouraging you to just be a violent detective.
But then if you don't choose that option, you just keep asking the same thing over and over again. It doesn't actually bring you to a different route of narrative.
Prime example being when you go to the strip club and you ask Georgie all these questions. And, I mean, I think you literally ask him like 8 times. I don't think I'm exaggerating. And
you were like 1 away from getting it, but you like chose to break something.
Yeah, because I
just
get fed up.
I was so there with you. Yeah. I can't believe I actually got through it all without breaking anything.
He keeps like backing himself into a corner, and you keep coming at him, and you're like, tell me what happened. Like, tell me where you keep the record book of all the clients. And he keeps dodging the question, and then you keep threatening him with like busting up his nightclub, and he keeps, I mean, it's the same question over and over. And finally I was just like, I have this baseball bat. I'm going to just start busting your nightclub up. Like, because we're obviously not getting anywhere here. So I think I busted his TV, and I busted like his neon sign. But it's there's no other option. Either you're running in circles or using violence to get where you want. And sometimes there doesn't seem to be any other choice at all, right?
Also, can you imagine working in a bar where there's a floor safe handle behind the bar? That is an OSHA violation. That is not safe.
You're gonna trip over that.
I'm not tripping over that constantly. Like,
God,
mixing your drinks.
You think about, Tubby.
That bothered me.
No one else would ever complain about that.
Well, because they put like a keg over it, right? And I'm like, I'm supposed to work behind this bar, running around this keg all the time. Do you know how busy it gets?
But it's just I'm trying to pretend that my choices matter. So if I don't seem like I'm getting anywhere, like I don't want to miss out on getting a clue. So the only other option I have is like obviously I'm not getting anywhere with this guy, so maybe violence will do something. And that's how I felt a lot of the
Yeah.
times in the game,
Like
right?
the Tweedledum decision.
Like the Tweedledum thing, it's like
Yeah.
no matter how many chances I give this Tweedledum guy to like back off, he keeps trying to kill me. Like I'm gonna rip your throat out. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's
I totally agree, but I did in that scene. I loved the shot of the bat approaching the boombox. It was really good cinematography because
in the strip club scene.
in the because it follows the camera follows the bat grinding over the bar and then stopping right in front of the
that was cool.
boombox. I thought that was
cool.
well done.
You're like threatening to. He's got an emotional attachment to this boombox, obviously. Georgie.
Okay, I have to talk about something else.
Here we go.
Okay, this whole prostitute strip club thing, it is only there because every single game has to have this as a signature feature, and there's no thought put behind it. There's no reasoning there.
What, the strip club?
Yeah, every game you play, because remember, these games used to be basically only for like straight dudes. There has to be...
What, you talking about the video games?
Yeah, I'm talking about all video games. There always has to be like a prostitute. There always has to be a nightclub. There's either like a strip club level or... It's just a signature part.
Right.
And it just felt so extremely forced in this, where I'm again witnessing not just violence against women, but against sex workers, which is on a whole different level of problematic, especially in a country where this is illegal and sex workers are actually treated as subhuman a lot of the time because like it's seen as something wrong to do.
Is that strip club like part of the comic though?
I don't remember reading about it in the comic.
Okay, I'd have to look into that because then it's like, are you going to change the source material just because of that, or are you sticking true to the comic?
Yeah, but I'm not concerned with the comics because this has to function as its own environment.
Okay.
And because prostitution is illegal in the States, then why is it suddenly totally okay in Fabletown when other things like these magic spells, which Buffkin says are not illegal, yet I'm extremely worried about these illegal black market magic spells that are not illegal. But I'm totally okay with prostitution, and this is an accepted part of the world. And we've just are now finally emerging out of these stereotypes and really harmful elements of games that we're now examining and being like, well, why is this here? And I feel like this game was still at a time. When was this game? 2013.
A couple years ago, right? 3 years ago, I don't know.
And because sex workers in this game are also not treated. They're clearly not treated as human beings. Colin says, I'm interacting with the disenfranchised. So these women are not seen as having a normal job or owning their sexuality and making money off of that.
Right.
You know, they're seen as less than because they're prostitutes. Once you're walking into the strip club, I have no choice but to, be a witness to verbal abuse towards Narissa.
Right.
And then also in all the framing of the shots, there's either a naked lady in the background or a poster of a naked lady.
Hey, so there's some naked guys in the background too.
I'm talking about
baby.
That's when you're walking in. But I did love that. I'm talking about this scene where you're talking to Georgie.
Yeah.
At that point, to me, it's just there for titillation, which is what most of these things serve as a purpose. If that makes sense.
Because you could come up with anything, right? As a backdrop to the murders. Like, it doesn't have to be a strip club.
So, especially in this, I was just really tired of it. Like, I was like,
Yeah. I mean, it just serves as the function of the whole story. So, I mean, just come up with something else to catapult
right, and
the
if
murders,
this is a normal part of Fabletown, why is that a normal?
I guess that never gets addressed.
This is not an aspect in any fairy tale. Like, this is not...
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's supposed to be just a strip club. Like they don't know, or they're turning a blind eye that there's prostitution going on, right?
No, they know there's prostitution. I don't know. The game doesn't challenge that at all.
He just thinks it's a strip club, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know at all what's going on in this like subculture of Fabletown.
I have no idea. We can move on.
Okay.
So can we talk about the Beast and Beauty?
Oh,
fight.
my least favorite characters of the whole game. If you ever played the Walking Dead game from Telltale, there's this character, Kenny.
And that was your beast.
That was the character of Beast from Beauty and the Beast. In this game, that was the version of Kenny from The Walking Dead, where it's this character who's constantly one note and he's annoying and
One note, yeah.
and it doesn't make a lot of sense always
Nope.
how he reacts to things. Like
We couldn't help like watching each other play because we live in the same house.
Yeah.
And I just remember one time where you were just screaming, "Just talk to your wife."
Yeah. But it's like there's a misunderstanding earlier in the game where Beast thinks that Beauty is cheating on him with you. That then gets cleared up, but then later in the game, Beast seems to still be mad at you
For that,
in some relation to that, which makes
yeah.
no sense at all. He's like, "Can I turn my back on you?" It's like, wait, no, we cleared this whole thing up. She was just letting me into a hotel room because there was a murder that happened there, and you saw the murder scene. So why is this even still an issue? But it's just this character. He's constantly one note. He's not all that bright. He's like asking you to do illegal things for him. Like, it's just completely annoying. And I mean, luckily he's not in the game all that much. Like Kenny in The Walking Dead is there all the time. You don't interact with Beast all that much, but the scenes that I do, like, I can't wait for them to be over because he's just insufferable.
Yeah, and in that scene where you're fighting, I knew that's what was going to open the door, that
Right.
you're like crashing into the door. But I thought there was going to be a difference in reaction based on my choices in that scene. And again, there were not. Because I
Right.
chose not to hit any of the, what is that called? The reaction buttons? When it says like, go left, go right, hit X,
really?
hit. Because I was like, well, I'm not going to fight with my friend.
So you don't even die?
No, he kills you.
Oh, he does.
I was mad. My notes are WTF, Beast killed me. Like, it doesn't, there's no like, oh, he's not fighting back, let's talk about this.
Okay.
It's just a game over. And I'm like,
Interesting.
wait a minute, this guy who's supposed to be my friend would have killed me?
Are you supposed to be friends, though? Like,
Yeah,
you just-
you're basically like room. I mean, I don't know, you live
I
in
don't
the
think
same
you're
building.
like best friends, though.
Yeah, but Beauty treats you kind of like a pal.
Talking about the fighting, I think all the action scenes are really cool, but
Yeah.
I wish there was a setting to where you could kind of increase the difficulty of it. Mm-hmm. Like, it all comes really easy. It's pretty forgiving mechanics when you're fighting, and I wish there was just, for people that, do play maybe are more experienced with gaming, that there's just a little bit more of a challenge when you're playing. Like, I don't think it'd be that hard to program into the game just to make it harder, or like when you have to hit triangle during the fighting, just make that window where you can hit the button, just make that shorter so you have to react faster. Just little things like that to where I'm on the edge of my seat a little more and I like really have to pay attention to be in it and just make it a little harder for me. Like, I would have appreciated that.
Okay. Yeah,
all
that
the-
didn't bother
yeah,
me, but I see what you're saying.
All the action scenes, I mean, they're a lot of fun. I think they're choreographed pretty smartly, I would say, and the art direction is always really cool, especially like in the alley fight, and you
Yeah.
got the shadows and everything. Like, it's just, I mean,
Definitely.
the art direction of the whole game is really cool. But yeah, I wish it was just a little harder sometimes. And the game also doesn't let you miss any clues. Like, when you're in the hotel room, like, you can't leave until you found every single clue. And it'd be nice to have something like, hey, if you missed the clue, that sucks, and you're not going to uncover this other thing later because of it, right? Like, the game won't let you fail, basically.
I was fine with that because I know it's hard to. That would be a huge game.
Yeah, it would be.
But then setting it up to where the mood is supposed to be different, as like if you're bad or if you're good, and
Right.
still not receiving that feedback, that to me was the frustrating part. Not the detective work being kind of easy, but just the whole reactions from other people that were not tailored to
Right.
my choices.
Right,
And
and,
also,
and sometimes, like, the game gives you an option to say something, and it comes out completely different than I thought what would happen with that choice. Like, sometimes it's not always clear cut when you make a certain choice with the character, what Bigby's actually going to say, and I don't know.
this game isn't as bad about that as some other games.
Yeah.
Like thinking back to Mass Effect 1, which had an insane problem with this. The one choice I remember so clearly was, in both choices, Shepard ends up saying the same thing. where it's like, protect the ship. And then Shepard goes, protect the ship, shoot down all the civilians. And Joker's like, okay.
Yeah,
And me as a player, I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah, you're like, I didn't agree to say that. Shoot all the civilians.
and then we're in the bedroom. There's a blood-soaked bed. And Beauty's civilian is just helping me out with this investigation. She's, again, not vomiting. She's totally fine. She's, like, in there, like, sleuthing it up with me. And I'm like, I get that I'm the only police officer and there's no force and it's just me. That does not mean I get to recruit all these random normal people. Into, like, this is, again, like the Snow White thing. It just didn't translate for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny that you say that there's no whole police force. I don't quite understand the world where it seems to be a pretty well-oiled machine. On the other hand, there's, like, only one sheriff and like one or two administrative people.
And one doctor and no forensics expert.
But then there's this whole other world, like the farm where people get sent to. So it seems to be like a pretty big world with lots of things going on, but then it's not sometimes. It's just this really tiny scale world. And I don't know, sometimes it doesn't line up for me. Like I'm not exactly sure what the scope of this world I'm living in is, if that makes sense.
No, that's true. So I don't know if you caught this, but in this crime scene, there's a red scarf draped over a lamp, and also in the office, there's a purple scarf. You saw that?
Oh, I didn't know the purple scarf.
Do not put scarves over lamps; they will catch fire. This has happened twice in our life, and I keep seeing this in movies.
You?
Well, it happened with your other roommate, with Rick.
Yeah.
And then this also happened when we were really young, and our mother had put like a blanket over.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
Like caught fire.
Yeah, this happened to me like 4 or 5 years ago, where I was living with this person, and they put all these clothes over their lamp, and I wake up at 1 a.m, and there's smoke everywhere. The fire alarm's going off, but there's no fire. Like there's so much smoke, we really can't figure out what's going on. We have to call the fire department.
Oh my god!
Everyone's out of the house, and the fire department goes up, and they find it's my roommate, and all her clothes are starting to smolder because lamps get really hot. I noticed that in the hotel room, that this piece of fabric's on the lamp, and it's the first thing. It like brought me back to that happening. I'm like, oh, everything's gonna catch on fire. Never mind that the light was already on. So the light's been on for like a whole day since the murder happened.
Yeah,
that
this whole place should be on fire, but there's no blood transfusion, so there's no fire physics either. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no Fabletown Fire Department. Would you just call the regular 911 at that point?
I was thinking about that.
Or is Bigby gonna come with a little garden hose? He's gonna put it out.
And people are still gonna be like, "You're ruining this community."
Yeah, he can't do right by anybody.
Can't
escape his past.
So the fairy tale book that you're looking through in that crime scene?
Yes.
I actually read it. Did you read it at all?
Oh no, I looked at the pictures. No, I didn't read it.
I was reading it, but it doesn't have the full story. You like skip through it, and I lost track. I was like, "What? That's not the story." And then I realized it was just parts of it because, of course, they're not going to do the whole story.
Yeah.
But actually, I think besides some strange punctuation, that was all pretty accurate. So good job,
nice.
Telltale.
Wait, you read it and you were looking at the punctuations of it?
When I read things in general, I look at punctuation because it helps you read things. What is happening?
But you took notes on the punctuation of it?
Oh, the only thing that was wrong on the cover of it, it says...
There was a semicolon missing.
It says Grimm's Märchen, which means Grimm's fairy tale. That has an apostrophe on it, but for possessive in German, you would not use an apostrophe.
Like, I feel like you're just a few years away of being this old crazy lady, and you're going to start emailing these game companies going, you missed the punctuations here in this part of the
bizarre?
game.
People are so hateful of anything to do with linguistics, and you would never find this in like, there are not people out there being like, math is all wrong, 2 + 2 does equal 5. Yet when I do this with language.
Fair enough.
Whatever. Also, all the apples listed in there, it was like the the Fuji, the Red Delicious, and the Empire.
Yeah.
Was he just trying to replicate the apple from
I think
from
so
the story?
because that never really gets tied into anything else,
Anything,
right?
right?
I think it's just that he's trying to
okay.
recreate it like bit by bit because he's a weirdo.
Well, if you're trying to recreate Snow White, which is an ancient
Yes.
from Grimm's times,
Right.
you would not choose Red Delicious because it is
delicious.
it is an American apple from the 1880s. You would not choose the Empire apple because it is also an American breed from the 1940s.
Apple history lesson.
And you would not choose the Fuji because it's a hybrid from the 1930s Japan.
So what apple does she have?
Ichabod just doesn't know his apples.
Oh,
is all I'm
Ichabod.
saying.
Icky.
Do his apple research.
I don't like so Ichabod. They fly him to France, right? To
and this
Paris?
is all fine. Like there's no follow up.
Yeah, that it bothered me that there's no conclusion at all with him because he's kind of really a scumbag, right? And he let this Fabletown kind of go to shit under his watch.
He's been embezzling.
And so the crooked man, Bloody Mary. I mean, we're on Ichabod's crane tail, so they just fly him out of there, like. But I don't like. Why are they protecting him? I don't get that either. Why do they care at this point?
I don't know.
Because he's compromised anyway. He can't help them anymore because he's not in power. So why are they even flying him to Paris?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't like that. There's no closure.
Yeah.
There's no even mention of it at the end of the game. Going like, hey, like I know we solved the murder and the crooked man's under wraps, but you need to go to Paris and get Ichabod.
Get
Crane
yourself a
back
baguette.
here. Yeah, I mean, there's just no closure with that, which is a little disappointing. Also, I don't know if you noticed this. There's a car chase 2 times in this game, and me being a wolf with claws, I never have the idea to slash anyone's tires. I thought that was weird.
Yeah, you just keep smashing, like Donkey Kong smashing the roof, and it's
I'm
not
looking
doing
for Ichabod
anything.
Crane. I find him at the strip club. He's driving like a giant green Rolls Royce, it looks like. No.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be like, Snow, stay by the car.
Yeah.
I'm going inside, but then you both just go inside.
Not even that, like, if I'm Ichabod Crane, I'm on the run, wouldn't I hide my giant green luxury car in the alley maybe? But also, like, just slash his tires so he can't get away later, because that's always, it's just things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're a wolf, use your little claws, puncture those tires. I don't know. These are just little things I noticed.
I totally agree. Also, in that crime scene at the Open Arms Hotel, the camera angles for me were really, really odd, and I had trouble navigating that room. I had that a couple times where it was difficult for me to use the controller to get to where I'm going.
But the angle's weird, and I've noticed there's a couple times where the angle's so weird. I'm trying to go left, and I literally have to press down on the joystick to, like, go left. It's like... Yeah. It's a little wonky sometimes, and then when you find an item that you need to look at or investigate, sometimes I found myself having to press the button multiple times for it to get to work. So a little bit wonky on the controls.
And then also my brother connected the wine bottle to Ichabod right away. I did not.
Oh, yeah, the wine bottle in the hotel room.
Smarty pants.
Because they made such a big deal out of it at the Fabletown office. He's like, why didn't you get my wine bottle?
Right, but then also there were the Huff and Puff cigarettes, but was that a red herring?
I don't...
And then also when you find the apple, I really wanted to click on, this apple means that the killer gets hungry. But I didn't choose. I want to go back and just choose that option.
Killer got hungry.
The worst detective ever.
Oh, he's crushing it.
Gosford Park. And then also something I thought was interesting at the end, one of my choices said 8.1% of players did not let Snow go with you to the bar. And I was shocked I was part of that 8% because I'm the only police officer. I can only do so much. I'm running an investigation. So I was like, well, you're obviously a target, so you're going to stay here because it's safest.
Right.
But everyone else was like, oh no, Snow, come with me. We're a team together. Right. And I'm like, she's wearing heels and she's not.
And her shirt has been the same for 3 days.
Okay. Listener, imagine this. It is the middle of summer. You see somebody wearing a snowflake shirt.
She's in cosplay, okay?
Why wouldn't you be like, it's not Christmas and you're wearing a Christmas shirt? What is... Yeah. And then she has these giant shoulder pads that extend out.
Everyone constantly has to wear the same outfit throughout the game, which is a little strange.
Well, it's tough. It's tough to like animate that.
No,
but
it is.
I just would have wished for a little more nuance to not just, oh, her name's Snow White, so she has to wear snow in her clothes all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Doesn't bother me
I wasn't
that
a
much.
fan of her outfit at all.
Doesn't bother me that much,
I
Big
like-
B. I'm going to my frog voice.
I like Big B's outfit though. It's really nice.
The untucked shirt with the tie. Yeah, classic, like detective not taking care of himself, smoking, drinking. We love those kinds of guys. Can always see a movie or play a game with that type of character, right?
So back at episode 3, getting
Mm-hmm.
through this, when he's getting treated after the fight at the funeral and he has his shirt off, and there's kind of like a tender moment between Snow White and Big B.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted more of that. I wanted more of like Wolfie getting along with Toad, or
Okay.
more of these, less of people yelling at sex workers and more of, just kind of taking a breath,
Interacting in
taking
the
a
world.
moment. I don't know. Because I like that. And then when they're doing the recap, he's putting on a shirt and then he goes, does that about cover it? And it's like a double mening.
Right.
Because it's covered
Good,
up. Yeah, I
good.
liked it.
How do we feel about his little piggy friend in the apartment?
I'm a
You
big fan
deported
of
the
the
piggy.
of the ... I was
Silence
the
option
I was
in
the
the
Ryan
dialogue.
Gosling silent hero, and that resulted in him being deported, which I didn't
Deported your
realize.
piggy. I really like the idea of he's the big bad wolf, and you have one of the piggies, and like they're friends later on,
Yeah.
and it still gets mentioned, like, hey, you still owe me for blowing my house down. I just, that's, like,
You
yeah,
love
you're
that.
right. I wish I would have had a little more of that,
Yeah.
of these fables, kind of, their stories intersecting, and it getting mentioned, and really all that gets mentioned is just how bad of a guy Bigby is, because he's this big bad wolf and everyone's constantly scared of him. It's so one-dimensional, where I feel like you could just kind of crisscross the fables a little more, and like, what's the history with all these people with each other?
Yeah,
How
instead
have their
of-
lives intersected?
Instead of using your dialogue budget to ask the same question over and over again, use it in these more kind of rewarding ways would be my
Right.
recommendation. Are you ready for our next OSHA violation?
Oh, God.
Where
Please.
poor Buffkin is putting together the mirror without any gloves,
my
and he's cutting himself.
He's
and
like invincible. It doesn't matter.
Buffkin,
I like Buffkin a lot, though.
poor little
He's a
baby.
fun character. What fable is he from?
Is it supposed to be Wizard of Oz?
Oh, is it? No.
The
Buffkin?
Flying Monkeys.
No, that's not Buffkin. They're just
I
flying
have no
monkeys.
idea.
God.
I haven't read the book either, so I don't know.
Buffkin.
You
That's gonna
could
be
Google that really quickly.
Nah, I don't feel like it.
I don't feel like it.
I don't feel like
Also now when Bluebeard comes in and he's like, what are we going to do next? And everybody's fighting. I went to Crane's apartment first.
Oh, see, I didn't go. I was kind of curious what was there. I didn't, because I went to the other place, I never got to go there ever.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Oh man, there was this gorgeous, the apartment has this backdrop of the city, and it's again like
Oh.
New York cityscape, and it's raining, and you're looking
That's
through the
cool.
window, and it's all purples, and then it fades into pink.
Huh. I wish I would have seen
gorgeous.
that.
Yeah, it was
Now I gotta
really
look it
nice.
up.
I only chose that because I was not trusting Bluebeard in any way, and he kept
Right.
insisting to check out the apartment.
Did you end up finding anything there?
You find what's his name? The guy who has a star on his shirt. He's like blonde. I did not
Yeah.
write this down, but he was robbing the place.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is why later you find some of the things in there at the
pawn shop.
At the pawn shop.
Yeah.
Like, which I guess you wouldn't know since you never went there. And then also you can investigate some of the things in there, and mostly it's just pictures of Ichabod. Like you can tell this guy's really obsessed with himself.
He's so
kind of.
handsome.
And then also there was an answering machine clue that you could click on.
okay.
And I just wanted to point out, just for the disabled community, that was not subtitled, which I thought was really strange because all the other subtitles were doing a really awesome job of color
Unbelievable.
coding and having everything there. So they must have just forgotten about that one. And then also there was a few letters that he'd written about Snow and to Snow, and the way that was worded was this very textbook predatory male thing, which is also the first conversation they had where he's just screaming at Snow. That was like triggering for me too. I thought that was very on point, and how these types of men treat their objects of desire or obsession. So that was really well done. And then also I thought there was going to be consequences to how much violence you could use because you're injured at this point, and the doctor says you have to like brace yourself. That's not a thing either. No. And there was I have to kind of break down the door to get into this room where you then find the guy stealing everything. And there was a symbol of a foot breaking down the door, but then Big B uses his arm, and you can't open it because you're injured. And I'm like, oh, it was...
That's weird.
There was kind of like a disconnect between what was actually happening in the game and what the game asked you to do. But then I don't know how you would do a shoulder symbol either, so I'm going to cut it a break there. Yeah, so where did you go then? Did you go to Tweedledee's office?
I did.
What was that like?
Oh, did you not go there?
No, I didn't go there.
Oh, look at that. It's just you find like the secret door there, and there's this little office underneath their office where they have all these packages that they're like the middlemen to delivering it to the crooked man and all that. So you find out they're in on it all. I
had no idea really what their role was because I went up to the woodsman and then I didn't go to their office. So
they just do all the dirty work. Like they were, just like, because Beast was delivering the packages, so they're kind of the middleman between the crooked man and all the people he's using, right? They had there was a filing cabinet keeping tabs on everyone, like Beauty's loan. So they're just almost like doing the crooked man's administrative work, and also just a kind of a hired hitman. They're just like doing all his dirty work, basically. You find out, yeah.
Oh, and then also when you're at Ichabod's apartment, Snow will come up. And while Jack is there, who's like a suspect, and you think about like taking him in basically because he's stealing.
Right.
Snow will start talking about, Ichabod was embezzling and there's a murder going on. And I'm like, there's a dude right here. Like, why are we talking about this like right in front of the dude? There were just so many things that Snow White did where I was like, this is not very professional.
You're not professional, Snow White.
And then also did you go to the bar then?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and then Gren passes out from being drunk, and then at the top it says Gren won't remember this. I thought that was cute. None of them remember anything, but that's sad.
There's a cute little side note, yes. He just passes out.
So then when you go to the witch's place, I knew right away that the little girl was the witch. Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was not fooled at all. I kicked down the witch's door. I'm like, I'm not messing around here. I know you're full of crap. But I noticed, because I watched you play the end of the game, you burned her tree down?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
Did you burn it down?
No, hell no.
This was extremely confusing to me, this whole choice here. Because we're following Ichabod, you got a whiff of his cologne or whatever. Right. There's a time limit. Yet, again, there's no fire department. I am not a fire marshal. I'm now supposed to create this controlled fire inside of an apartment and burn those. Like, the thing that Snow was asking me to do that we literally didn't have time for.
Right.
I had no idea what the intention was here. Because I was like, I can't just light this on fire inside a building.
And she's constantly preaching how she's going to change things, but then she just keeps, like, wanting to disenfranchise the little man. You know, like, these working class people, like...
I'm like, what?
Yeah, it is kind of strange.
Yeah, I want to go back and I'll watch what it's like to burn down that tree. Does the whole apartment building burn down? Is it a magical fire?
I don't know.
I wasn't given enough information about this, and it didn't make any sense in the moment. It wasn't just that I was being a nice guy. I was also like, how does this make any sense?
Especially when you're trying to get this witch on your good side to give you info, and then you're going to, like, threaten to burn her library down. It's
also, the witch
bizarre.
is Laura Bailey. She's one of my favorite voice actresses, but maybe she wasn't given enough info about this character because she doesn't sound like an old woman in this. She just sounds like Laura Bailey.
Interesting. Really? I thought she sounded fine.
No, she just... Not what I would... like a crone would sound like, but I don't know. She
has to sound like.
I guess that was just what I was imagining.
Not every old person sounds like that. What else?
Okay, that was it. All I
I know
had
we're
for
doing a
that
lot of nitpicking. I'm
episode.
kind of ready to get to the end of the trial, unless you got some other stuff.
Hold on. Doot. Okay, so just to let you know, Narissa, the Little Mermaid character,
Yes.
that's Greek for sea nymph. I thought that
Okay.
was really cute that they chose that name. Oh, the painting of Beauty and the Beast in their apartment, gorgeous. Oh my god, that was such a great piece of art. Like I would want to hang that up at home.
If I had a piece of art of myself like that, I'd hang it up at home.
And then also the Jersey Devil character design. I don't know if we talked about it, but I thought it was really well done. Very cool with the antlers coming out and the kind of strings coming out of his mouth. And yeah, that was really a really good choice.
I like this character in general. It's just this sleazebag, and he looks like this old guy, but he's really kind of like quick on his feet, right? Like the X-Men grabs him, because he just seems like this weak old pawn guy, but then there's just like punches him right in the ribs. Like he's really fast. I don't know, it was just kind of a cool character.
Also, another line that I want on a T-shirt because I was just laughing forever was the butcher going, "Just me. You won't find anything else."
Butcher was an idiot.
Just me.
Who took no responsibility at all for what was going on at his shop.
Well, that was another thing that was strange to me because he's like, "You never cared before about me losing my business."
You never said anything,
and I was like, "Was this reported? How was I supposed to know about this?"
Yeah, that butcher. Oh, and he just like won't shut up, and he keeps just like right there on that level with Beast. I'm like, couldn't wait to get out of there. It's just annoying the crap out of me.
Oh, also something I thought was really funny was the clever Hans, who was not so clever. He's like the janitor at the strip club. He's like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah, that cracked me up. It's
really
just like
funny.
this big muscular Hans from Hans and Gretel.
No, he's clever Hans. I think.
I thought it was from Hans and Gretel.
Yeah.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So at the beginning of episode 5, you're kind of like in the den of lions.
Right.
And I didn't say anything. I was a silent type again. Did you start arguing because everybody else started arguing? And I was like, maybe if they get mad at each other.
With the Crooked Man?
Yeah. They will just fight each other and I'll stay out of this.
The Crooked Man just kept being like, "Oh, just take Georgie and we're cool." And I just kept being like, "Nah, dude, like you're coming with
really?
me too." Yeah.
I was committed
they
to
all get in an argument with each other regardless.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Don't take this from me.
And I think you're like able to point it out to them a little bit, right? They all just like start fighting with each other.
Oh man, and I'm just because I'm looking through my notes episode by episode. What you said a little bit ago, my notes are they just go back to the pudding and pie? Really?
Yeah, like in the car chase, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Down.
Like, don't hide anywhere else. Like, you're the owner of the strip club. Why would you go back to the strip club?
Oh, I want to talk about the reveal at the strip club of Vivian being the Velvet Ribbon Girl, which is another song thing that I did not know. Story thing. Ghost story. I didn't know about it.
Right.
Because this whole dialogue was just bizarre to me because Georgie just keeps talking and talking and I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I really gotta go. And then it portrays Vivian as this girl who loves Georgie no matter what he does. And she's the victim. And she's like, we just had an idea for discretion. It was just this fun way to start a business. And I'm like, you just had this fun idea to
like
enslaving people and when they want to get out, their head comes off? What?
Like, you're out of your mind.
Like, she plays the victim, and I'm like, none of this, where are we? Like, none of this was believable to me.
I also think it's weird, like, Georgie's dying there from the knife wound, and, like, there's no option to call, like, 911 for or something?
Again,
like, medical.
You're just talking. This happened when, if Prince Lawrence is alive, which in my place where he wasn't.
Yeah.
They are trying to get help. They don't get help.
Right. Yeah,
they just
weird.
go into the interrogation, and I'm like, is this because they're fables and they don't need help?
One thing that's weird that was with Georgie is I couldn't figure out. It wasn't clear to me if he wanted me to kill him and end his suffering, or if he just wanted me to leave him there. And then I ended up.
I left him there.
Yeah, well, the option just said, like, press this button to leave Georgie. So that's what I did because I didn't get the vibe that he wanted me to kill him. But then when I left him, the little message up top said, "You let Georgie suffer." And then Georgie's like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "Oh, wait, no, like, I didn't know you wanted me to kill you. Like, I can do that." But there was no way to go back from that. But yeah, it's just another one of those cases where it just wasn't completely clear to me what my choice was going to do. Because I would have been happy to kill him if he wanted me to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the ending a little bit. I never found out what
Yeah.
TJ's witness statement was. I tried to Google it, but when he says, somebody said, "Stop laughing at me," when the body's dropping in the water. I still have no
Right.
idea who that was. Nobody seemed to care, so I didn't find anything on this.
Well, it was just one of the girls that died, right? What do you mean?
Yeah, but the person dropping the body in the water,
Oh,
he
like, who
heard.
did that?
Yeah, he heard somebody say, "Stop laughing at me."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
yeah,
I don't.
yeah,
I still don't know who
That's
that
true.
was.
I didn't think about that. It never comes back at all, does it?
Yeah. So then the legal proceedings kind of equal the Middle Ages
Oh
in the
my
witching
god,
well.
this bothered me so much.
People didn't have any. They were flip flopping constantly.
Well, so they bring the Crooked Man down to like the underground of Fabletown, and they just hold this immediate trial for him. But there's only like 10 people there. Like, wouldn't you get everyone from Fabletown together? Like, that bothered me so much. Like, if you're gonna do it like that, just have more characters there, right? Like, fill up the room for this trial. But there's like only 10 characters there to discuss what's gonna happen to the Crooked Man.
Well, I guess it was just the ones who were involved, but the woodsman's not there.
Yeah, it was. The whole thing is really bizarre.
It was just strange that their opinions were constantly changing from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
Like, that was I don't know.
Well, the whole point was like to get the crowd on your side and convince them to like prosecute the Crooked Man, right? Because no one's happy with the Crooked Man, but no one's happy with how Fabletown's getting run either. So.
And we both arrested him, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, I arrested him. I didn't kill him.
Yeah, we
thought I'd
didn't
be
throw
the
him in the
bigger man.
witching well.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to talk about that fight scene super quick because that final wolf form of
yes,
Big
I
B
forgot about that. Yes.
was like so awesome. I was like, I'm a doggy, and you're blowing the wind. You're
Yeah, because this whole time I'm just thinking like I just turned into this mini wolf. Like I didn't
with the
know
weird
I could.
ears at the side.
Yeah, I didn't know I could turn into this whole giant wolf creature. That was badass. That was a really nice reveal. And yeah, that whole fight with I liked the whole Bloody Mary character like a lot. I thought just the way they did her made her look and just the voice acting and her attitude. Like she was my favorite bad guy for sure. And yeah, when she just turns into Bloody Mary and she's got these mirror shards in her, like I just loved the way they did everything with her. And she's just a complete badass. But you turning into this giant bloodthirsty wolf, not only is it cool, but it then also because everyone makes a really big deal about how you're this big bad wolf for the whole game, and now you it makes you understand that a little more. Like, oh, I can turn into this monster.
Rawr.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Why everyone is scared shitless of me.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great fight scene. All the fight scenes,
Yep.
I
Yeah,
enjoyed
they
a
were
lot.
good. They were really good.
Yeah.
All right, we need to talk about the ending because it makes no sense.
So in the ending, you're talking to the Little Mermaid girl after everything has ended, and yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start with this.
Okay.
It basically leaves you with this twist at the very, very end.
I need to tell you something. I have to tell you something.
I feel like we've met before.
You're trying to place me. You like my ribbon? Do you like it?
Faith wore one too. Would hide her beauty so she could escape his kingdom.
They used to call me the Little
Did
Mermaid.
Dr. Swinehart ever get back to you about
He
Faith?
said he wanted to run more tests. I hope you find what you're looking for.
But it's supposed to be usual suspect style. The
yeah.
the problem with that comparison is that all the clues in the usual suspects leads to the one conclusion that
Right.
Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze. In this, it leads nowhere.
Oh my god, you just spoiled that movie for everyone.
Oh,
Just messing.
oh man.
Yeah, because there's like I had to go online onto all these game forums and read up, and no one has a clear-cut answer. It's never explained. It's super wishy-washy. Like, I don't know if someone at the end of making this game just got this hunch of like, oh, let's put in this open ending, or if they just ran out of time to make the game.
Telltale
Or
said it's supposed to be ambiguous. That's just code for we didn't know what we were
it's
doing.
not ambiguous if you can, because you can argue like 2 or 3 different sides
And
of
none
what
of them
happens.
make sense.
Yeah, all of them have loopholes, so it's not ambiguous. That's
Yeah.
just like no ending makes sense at that point.
So the first lines is supposed to suggest that these two people are one person. I think we can all agree on that.
Right.
That Faith and Nerissa are one person.
Someone glamored themselves to look like the other person, right?
And then you remember Buffkin saying she would hide her beauty so she could escape wearing the donkey skin. And then also the things that support
Referring
that.
to Faith.
Yes, the theory that Faith is alive and she's the one walking away.
So the first theory is Faith is still alive. Faith was the
Yeah.
first girl that was murdered. And so Faith is still alive, and she glamored herself to make herself look like the Little Mermaid girl, right?
Yeah, and the things that support that are that in the original fairy tale, Donkey Skin wanted to be discovered, and she ends up marrying the new king, and she gets away, and she uses this disguise to get away. So
Right.
that's the source material. But then why is her makeup broken and her jewelry case broken at the strip club if this is Faith and she had access to that? And why is the makeup
Right.
scattered all over the floor?
To just make it look like.
And then if
a
that
murder
is the
more?
case, Georgie would have killed Nerissa. Yeah, Georgie never says he kills Nerissa. He specifically says he killed Lily and
That's
Faith.
why I like the second theory the best, being that Little Mermaid glamored herself to look like Faith in the first episode to kind of get you on the tracks of this whole murder, right? To get your attention.
Right, but then the things he's remembering don't make any sense of why those lines were chosen to play in the final sequence. And also,
Is that just the game developer like trying to throw us off the scent? I don't know.
No. That there's different writing intrigue is different from just throwing random stuff at you. My name is J.J.
Right.
Abrams. Nothing makes sense. And then also in the original fairy tale, the donkey skin girl has to work for a living, which is kind of paralleled here that she has to be this sex worker.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, Georgie keeps saying that he killed Faith, like he never mentioned. So I think the first theory just makes way less sense than the other theory. You know what I mean?
Well, they both don't make any sense.
Well, one makes more sense. Because why else would Georgie like lie about that if he's confessing to the murder, right?
But then
No.
why is he remembering, like, where do I... Oh, you're trying to place me, or...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going off what.
Yeah, I know.
The
I was
game
just
is-
reading so much about it that my brain is fried, and that it's just such a frustrating ending. It's not satisfying in any way.
No.
Ah.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're nitpicking a lot about the game. Overall, I really enjoyed playing the game.
Well, I don't know. This is part of me looking at something critically, and especially if something has like a ending that doesn't make that is
Yeah.
very frustrating for going through a narrative and then having that as
well,
your
it
ending.
just seems unnecessary. Just give me an ending. I don't know. Why does there have to be an open ending?
And then also you can't follow up on, like we said, Ichabod and the fact that this person gave a false witness statement. You know,
Right.
which is also
Sure, yeah.
frustrating.
But I don't mind open endings as long as all the theories make sense. Like, you
Yeah.
know, the movie Inception by Christopher Nolan. I don't have a problem with that ending at all. But this ending, it's like not. They wanted an open ending for God knows what reason, and it doesn't seem to be all that well thought out. And it just seems unnecessary. Like, just give me closure to the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Closure, yeah.
Especially because so as we said, the game studio was closing down, but they were closed down, and they were going to make a second season of this game, but it wasn't going to be related to this
No.
at all. They were never going to address this open ending ever again.
Non-ending.
Yeah, non-ending.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if the second season then dives into that ending, then it's okay. But if you're not even ever going to address it in the second
Yeah.
season, it just seems really silly.
Because there's nothing to figure out, because online it's just different people yelling at each other and pointing out holes in each theory that make
Right.
complete sense. So it's not, there's nothing to figure out.
I think it's way cooler if don't make it open-ended. Just make it so that she glamored herself, that Little Mermaid glamored herself as Faith. Make that be the twist. Just make that twist straightforward. Then it's like a cool ending, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, we have to end on something good about this game because
I really enjoyed the game overall. I wouldn't want to play it again just because at the end of the day, the choices don't really matter, and it's all just this illusion of choice, which a lot of games struggle with that make it seem like you have choices.
oh, yes, I wanted to talk about really quickly the evolution of good versus bad choices. Because the culmination, the Grand Prix of this, what we currently have, is Dragon Age Inquisition, which came out a year after this game, I believe.
Okay.
Where your responses, you're not building a world that's either like crummy or good, because then you're just you're spending half of your time creating content that maybe 10% of players experience, because people are not psychopaths and they do not want to interact in a world that is just criminal and terrible and
Right.
everything sucks. And Dragon Age Inquisition has just choices that are motivated by different reasons that don't have anything to do with a dichotomy of good and bad.
Okay.
You have reactions where there's a symbol saying like, oh, this is a tier, like you're feeling sad about this, you're angry about this, you're happy about this, so
Right.
that you're not surprised by the things that are coming out of your characters
Gotcha.
now.
Okay.
And we started really with Fable. This was
I was
huge.
gonna say that's the first time I remember playing a game.
That was a
where
big
choices
deal
mattered.
back in the day that
Like,
you
this is
could
cool.
be like have devil horns or like wings or whatever, or a halo, whatever it was.
Right.
And I feel like this game is so on the right track of making that more nuanced. And obviously you're choosing between peace and violence and the kind of person Big B is.
Right.
But there's still more to it than just good or
Yeah.
bad. You know,
Yeah.
and I think we're kind of emerging out of that. That was kind of our jumping off point for choice, good or
Right.
bad. But now we're kind of realizing that you're wasting so much time on something that people don't really
and
want.
I think the biggest game where this came up was where this issue of this illusion of choice came up for people, I think, was Mass Effect 3, right? There was such like
Yeah,
an
that ending,
outlast
yeah.
where you had, I mean, probably like millions of people who invested so much time, like I did, playing the first game, the second game, the third game, and then at the end of the day, you're left, it doesn't really matter what you do. You've invested hundreds of hours in this game, and you're left with these three choices where all three endings are the same, but just in different colors. Like,
yeah,
I was
well, that's how I felt a little bit about this
yeah,
game.
I was so infuriated. I think that's when people really started first talking about this whole like illusion of choice thing, and I think it has come into the public consciousness more. And games like when I played Until Dawn, that's when I first felt like I'm playing a game where choices like really, really matter. And that game did that really well. And I think games are just gonna keep getting better at making choices actually matter. And it's really hard because when choices do really matter, you have to
Make different games, basically.
Yeah, you have to make 100 different games and program 100 different scenes and endings and voice dialogue, and it just exponentially grows if every choice really matters. So I get it's really hard to make, but
Then don't commit to that. I would be
Yeah.
my recommendation.
Yeah.
Again, I did like the cinematography in this with some of the cutscenes. I thought the camera angles were. I think people don't think about that when they're playing a game, but so much goes into the framing of things. Even Stacy, who doesn't play video games, she walked
she was
in.
like watching you.
Yeah, she walked in. She was like, "Oh, that looks really nice." Like it is really well designed.
And the whole way Telltale did their graphics, I mean, it's very like comic booky, and it always looks. I mean, every game I've seen from them, it always looks pretty cool. Like
And
they do a
it's-
really good job with that.
It went to a point where that was a signature thing,
Yeah.
and that's plays into marketability and being able to recognize these things. Like I
Right.
know when somebody cosplays this and they draw the lines on their face to look
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
characters, I'm like, I know immediately that's a Telltale game.
Right.
That's something you want as a company, is people recognizing your product.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's like, I first came in contact with Telltale when I played that first season of the Walking Dead game, and to this day, it's one of the favorite things I've ever played Like that game,
Clementine.
Clementine. That game just made me feel things that I hadn't felt playing video games, to where the game was just asking you to make these really brutal choices of like, hey, are you gonna leave this person here, or are you gonna cut their leg off and like bring them with? And I don't know, the game like really sucked me in, and it was the first time I'd been exposed to this episodic, like releasing games by episode, which I think they really kind of pioneered. And the art direction's always cool, and for the most part, like, you want to interact in the worlds that Telltale build, and you want to interact with the characters. And like, on some level, it's sad that those games are not like. I would have loved to like. I love Stranger Things. I would have loved to see like what kind of game they come up with there. And it's just, it's sad to see that that's not going to happen. But I do wonder if some other game studio is going to pick up any of these titles or hire any of these people to, continue making these games. Like, we'll see what happens. Yeah, unfortunately, whoever was running that studio is a piece of crap. And it's unfortunate that they won't be making any more games.
Yeah, I don't think it's just one person. It's just...
No, of course
it's also the consciousness fans have about this, of people online being like, well, you should finish this game now without pay because I want to play Wolf Among Us season... And having no idea what a job is.
Yeah. Don't feed your family.
Hey,
make my game.
Love yourself. We appreciate you, game developers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's going to leave a void, and like, I don't know who else out there is making like this type of game, like nobody that I can think of. And, maybe someone will pick up the torch and run with it, and I guess time will tell.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyways, if you want to hit us up, if you have something you want to hear us talk about on the Modern Life Podcast, email us. modernlifepod@gmail.com, at modernlifepod for both Instagram and Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to donate to the show, there's a link in the podcast description below. Do we know yet what we're going to talk about next week?
We don't know yet.
Okay, we're going to come up with something. Sorry that we didn't have an episode last week. I was sick. You can still kind of hear it.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was.
I'm not sick at all. Passed out on the couch. All the cough drops in your mouth.
Stacey was dealing with back issues, and also we wanted to do an episode on this video game, and it
takes a while.
Yeah, it's not like a movie where I can just watch it in one night sitting. It takes a couple days to play this game.
I love you, TJ.
TJ
is my favorite. I love TJ. my little bug collector.
But anyways, we'll have another episode next week for you, and yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys then.
Thank you.